Thanks for staying with us. While some pathology laboratories have decided to reduce the prices for COVID-19 PCR tests, they've made a fortune since the start of the pandemic. The companies have reached an agreement with the Competition Tribunal. You will now pay 500 Rand instead of 850 Rand for the COVID-19 test. Let's speak to Financial Mail editor Rob Rose about this. Thank you so much for your time. Rob, speak to us about why you think it's taken so long for the Competition Commission to investigate and drop the prices of these COVID-19 tests.
Evening, Heidi. Well, the Competition Commission tends to wait until they have a complaint before they investigate. So in this case, they wait until they had a complaint from the Council for Medical Schemes, which represents the medical aids. So that's why it took them so long. And I think it's an important point to say that they should have been more reactive on this, perhaps, and seen that this is where it's going. But another factor is that right at the beginning of the pandemic, COVID tests might have been. It might have been a justifiable price, 850 Rand. Certainly, they used to be more expensive. They were more than 1,000 Rand initially. But as there was more volume and the cost of test kits reduced, there was some point along the line where they should have been able to reduce the prices, and they certainly didn't. And I think that that's the point when the Competition Commission should have come to them and said, guys, people are getting ripped off here.
Yeah, so the Competition Commission actually said that it's done well because it got a complaint in October, and by December they were able to make a decision. But it also went on to say that it cannot divulge the profits that these laboratories have made, but we can, of course, reach out to them, which we have done so, but they declined to be interviewed here on eNCA. From your assessment and looking at the situation, I'm sure billions of rands were made.
Yeah, our calculation was that effectively, if the private labs had done, 10 million tests or so, that would have been easily 8 billion Rand in revenue made. And not all of it would be profit, but certainly the indication is that they did make what the Competition Commission had told me today was super profits, certainly in the last couple of months. So, 8 billion Rand in revenue at the very least, and then a large chunk of profit in the last couple of months. So there's been a lot of money made. The question is, the Competition Commission now says that 500 Rand still gives them a reasonable profit margin. So you can estimate from that, or you can impute from that, the actual cost of those kits is probably more like, 400 is probably what it's costing them. If they're now charging 500 Rand, you might say, 100 Rand or so is a reasonable profit on that. So even at this reduced price, they're still making profit. They're not making a loss on this. The Competition Commission wouldn't force them to make a loss on this. So it does indicate to what extent they have been profiteering off these tests until now.
Yeah, but we are in the middle of a pandemic, and people are desperate, and people might not opt to test because of how expensive this test is. This is also why we wanted Empath and Lancet on to explain to us what exactly goes into testing and the costs that go with that. But do you think that the Competition Commission has muscle to persuade these laboratories to try and drop the prices even more, or is 500 Rand satisfactory, would you say?
Well, at the moment, they have to report back every couple of months to the Competition Commission, every 3 months or so, and say if there's any scope to drop their prices further. So in terms of this agreement reached, and this was just with Empath and Lancet, not with Pathcare, which is the third big laboratory. These two laboratories agreed to report back and then drop their prices more if there's greater economies of scale or if prices come down. So it's not an open-ended thing that they're going to charge 500 Rand forever. If the Competition Commission sees that prices are reduced further and the cost can be reduced to say 300 Rand, then I think they will certainly demand that.
The Competition Commission also said that there were certain labs that they had to basically strong arm and say you have to reduce the prices. Why do you think these labs, I don't want to use the word opportunistic, but why do you think they are charging people so expensive, so much, or why do you think they were charging people so much? Some people really just opted not to test because it was so expensive.
Well, I did speak to Lancet and Empath today. They gave me a response to questions, and their view is that, right at the beginning, there was a lot of capital outlay to set up these tests and the entire process of testing for COVID. So they say that along the way they had to recover those costs, and then ultimately, Heidi, these are businesses. So if they can make a profit, they will try and make a profit. And I think that it then comes down to our regulators to be more alert to what is happening in society and say, you guys can't be profiting off a pandemic like this. The question is, if there hadn't been this big pressure on Lancet and AMPAT in the last couple of weeks, would they have dropped their prices to 500 Rand? And I think the answer would probably be no. I don't think they would have done that unless they had to.
Yeah, I mean, I find it shocking that 20 months later, we're told, oh, we did an investigation and the tests will now cost 500 Rand. But hopefully there will be some kind of further reduction. We'll just have to wait and see what the Competition Commission says. Maybe I can ask you one last question, Rob. Do you think that these labs should be fined for the exorbitant prices?
Well, the thing is, they're not going to be, because this was a agreement reached that they wouldn't pursue the unfair pricing investigation in exchange for them dropping their prices. I think had they not done that, then there might have been scope to fine them. But as you say, the fact that they can so easily drop their price from 850 Rand a few weeks to 500 Rand indicates that the guys who spent 850 Rand a few weeks ago and they were told there was no other option, now they can get a 500 Rand. So why didn't they do it before? And it does reflect badly on them. And I think that it's created an air of cynicism about the pathology labs. We already have a lot of cynicism in society around how the government has handled COVID-19 and the profiteering on PPE and various other things. So it hasn't reflected well on anyone.
Certainly, and just as you rightfully point out, the fact that if they can drop it so quickly from 850 Rand to 500 Rand, why couldn't this have been done earlier? But thank you so much for your insights. That was Rob Rose, the Financial Mail editor.